Good afternoon. Welcome to EduSet Network. Friend, as you know, in a two lecture we will try to know about development communication. There are various aspects of development communication. It's a vast field, but we will try to know the dominant feature of development communication. And as you know, in the recent part, the journalists have also been paying attention on this issue. They have come out from the political and sensational coverage, especially after the P. Sainath got award for the reporting on developmental issues and writing on developmental issues. So I hope this has become a very relevant field and very important field of the present day communication media. And for discussion on this very topic, we have in a studio a renowned academician and media person, Professor J.S. Jadhav. In fact, he has led the foundation of media industry in India, and as you know, there are the person who are holding the top position in different media channels have been sometimes a student of him when he was the director of IMC, and presently also he has been training a number of students for the media, a number of media professionals, and delivering a lecture and shaping the media industry. So I hope his knowledge and experience will help us to understand this topic, development communication, in a new way, a new perspective. So on your behalf, I welcome Dr. J.S. Jadhav, and without taking much time, I now request Professor Jadhav for the lecture on this very topic. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here. Actually, we are living in the age of development. Everybody is talking about. We do say India is a fast developing economy. We do say India is one of the first running country which is moving very fast economically. Developing countries, developed countries, that kind of words you must have heard a lot. But let's try to analyze it more clearly and critically. What is development and how communication is related? As said, journalists are also now paying attention to developmental issues. As a matter of fact, in India, we followed the planned development right soon after our independence. The first 5-year plan itself laid the very solid foundations in use of communication for development. If I remind you, in the first 5-year plan, it was very clearly stated that we will reach out to the people for whom the plans are being made and whose development we are seeking to. So all sorts of information was to be reached to the people so that they become willing partners. Now in that context, India has been paying fair amount of attention to developmental issues. We'll come one by one, but let's first understand what is communication means. Try to split these two words, communication and development. Then you'll have better understanding of the communication or development communication. There are various ways of looking at communication, but here I will simply say it in simple terms that communication is a process of exchange. And what do we exchange in that process? I would say three things very clearly. We exchange information, we exchange ideas, and we exchange values between two or more persons through shared signs and symbols. Now it's a very simple definition of communication, but it conveys a lot. Means when you give information, let's say tomorrow there will be a holiday to the students, then it's an information. Ideas are much deeper and difficult to change. More difficult to change are values, means religious values and other cultural values are difficult to change. But that's how it goes on all the time. So if we take this communication as a process of exchange of information, ideas and values between two or more persons through shared signs and symbols. If the two parties or people involved in this exchange do not understand the signs and symbols, they will not be able to communicate. For instance, the Westerners will not understand when we hold our hands that we are greeting. Or if they see a bindi on a lady's head, they do not say. When they see the married mark, they will not understand because they are not familiar with the Take another example. In Army or Air Force or Navy, we are not familiar their ranks and their soldiers' badges. So if you don't understand, you don't understand what rank the person is. So communication takes place only when two parties or people involved understand the signs and symbols. Otherwise, the language is a part of that. Now, I will go a little deeper that what is this communication process? Its uniqueness. There are various processes we are all familiar: digestive process, thinking process, blood circulatory process, combustion process, education process. We are all familiar. I won't go into detail, but communication process has certain uniqueness, which will help you understanding the development also. Essentially, communication, three major characteristics: that it's a two-way, it's not difficult to understand, it's very complex. Apparently, it looks simple, but it's very complex. Third, to which I will draw your attention, highly selective process. No other process is that selective. Now, I'll devote little time, इस पर थोड़ा समय ज़्यादा लगाने के बताना चाहूँगा कि सिलेक्शन जो होता है एक्सपोजर लेवल पर होता है. That what you read in a newspaper, you don't read everything in a newspaper. Even the choice of a newspaper, कौन सा अखबार आप पढ़ते हैं नहीं पढ़ते हैं, वो आपकी चॉइस है, सिलेक्शन है. जो अखबार आपने सिलेक्ट किया उसमें क्या पढ़ेंगे ये भी आप एक सिलेक्शन करते हैं. सेम इज़ ट्रू अबाउट रेडियो और टेलीविजन और फॉर दैट मैटर एनी कम्युनिकेशन. Even while walking on the road, you don't see everything. You see things which helps you in walking safely on the road. If you're driving, you will see one thing. If you're on the steering wheel, the person sitting by the side of a driver will see different things. So all the time when we communicate, we select. So exposure level, there is a selection. Even if you have selected or you have seen or read or heard, how you interpret a particular message varies from situation to situation, person to person. So there is a highly selective interpretation. Everyone's perceptions are different, we say it often. And having seen it or having exposed and having interpreted rightly, we make different use of what messages have come to us. Now you might ask, on what basis people make a selection? How the communication is selective, on what basis selection takes place? I would put three things. One, the past experience. Everyone grows up, he has a lot of cumulative experience. Based on that experience, he selects which paper he reads. Maybe his parents were reading, you are also reading. So it's a kind of experience, the past, and every moment becomes a past. The present is present, and every moment which is to come is future. So the past experience plays an important role in selection, what you will see, what you will read, and what you will hear. Now, future, again, needs, because much of the communication depends on what are your needs. While you are driving and steering on the steering wheel, you will see what helps you in driving safely. You will see the red light, you will see any blocks, you will see anything comes in front of you, and you will apply instinctively brakes. But the person sitting next to the driver will see totally different things. He might see somebody walking by, he might see something else which driver may not see. So depending upon our needs, we select. Same thing applies in newspaper. Normally you read based on your experience. You read your future needs are. If you are preparing for an examination, you might read something. If you are competing for a competitive examination, you might read different things. So depending on needs, you select the message from any medium, whether it's a newspaper, radio, or television, or for that matter, any other communication media. You select depending upon what are your needs for the message. Now, third is basis is present mood. Now, this is very tricky, that your present mental state or physical or emotional or psychological states influence a lot. And that's where the whole creativity in communication comes, because you cannot manipulate much of the past experience. The needs to some extent you can manipulate, but present mood through good communication the creative part in communication comes to change the people's present mood, make them happy, make them think, make them desire something. All advertising plays on this mood. They create those kind of emotions which creates needs and leads to some kind of change in behavior or adoption. Now, communication process, what does it do? Means you must have known about it, but let me recapitulate briefly what it does. Many times you must have come across that communication informs, educate, and entertain, right? But I would put more emphasis on relate and influence. That through communication we are given identity, we become what we are given a name, we are given a religion, we are given a nationality, lots of other identities, service, and many jobs or whatever it is. Most important from development point of view, the point which I am making, influence. Through communications we influence people. Now, it's not that easy. I would say communication is necessary for organized social life, both for continuity, status quo, and change, that is development. No communication or without communication there is no change is possible. Even continuity, that what our parents were doing, what society or our peers have been doing, we learn through communication. So both for continuity and change we need communication. Change means development. Let's have a look at what is development. That's how I look at development. There are various definitions, there are various perspectives through which development can be seen or discussed. I will try to make it simple, that development means different things for different people. Yes, all kinds of definition, all kind of economic perspective, psychological perspective, sociological perspective, anthropological perspective, individual perspective, and social perspective. All different perspectives are available. We will not go into detail, but broadly, how I look at development is, means a change in the desired direction. Means when we became free, we were much lower level of economic development. Infrastructure was less, and lots of things were not available. But we launched, or we kind of started planned development. Now India has moved quite a bit, or quite come a long way. But broadly we can say any change which is in the desired direction is development. But there are certain changes which may not be in the desired direction. I would hesitate to call that as a development. Means I will take development more in the positive sense, that society decided, the seniors, leaders or planners decided to move in a particular direction, and if you change in that direction, I would say that is a development. For development, communication is use of communication in support of development. Now, the one way of looking at the two together, that's communication and development, that use communication in support of development, that is in support of desired change. Now, development is a change for good for the largest number. That's another way of, that's good of not individual, small number, but largest number possible. That's a kind of development we are looking for. That's why the planning, the 5-year plans, they all kind of plan to change in the desired direction, and to make that possible, communication is required. And I said it, the first 5-year plan itself, the desired direction was decided. Subsequent plans do indicate those desired directions, and all plans do have emphasis on use of communication in support of development, so that people, जो masses जिनके लिए डेवलपमेंट की जा रही है, वो इसमें भागीदारी ले पाएँ. आप अगर दिल्ली में हैं तो आपने अखबारों में अक्सर ऐड देखी होगी, भागीदारी, the participation. The whole emphasis in communication or development communication is to make it as far as possible participatory. We even use the word planning from below, planning from ground. from down upwards. So all these factors do implement. You must be having many questions, and I will love to answer those questions. Now, this is what I have been saying earlier, that in India, importance of communication in development was recognized long back. Right in the first 5-year plan, it was stated that people should be informed, educated about various development plans and schemes that the central and state governments were undertaking as a part of the plan development, so that people become willing partners in the development initiative. And for this, all forms of communication resources are to be mobilized and strengthened. Now, they have given emphasis that development, for achieving development, communication is necessary, and for that you have to have communication with the people. You have to inform what is the plan, why, how it helps them, what they can do. All those kind of information and education is to be passed on to the masses, the mass awareness, so that they become willing partners, they become party to that development process. I'll give you, for your quick reference, a couple of examples of development communication where communication has been used for development purpose, or we plan development and then use communication in support of development. Now, take the early cases of agriculture, and you might have heard of Green Revolution. India's agriculture output or production was low and population was increasing. The enough grains were not available. Then we moved on, or we initiated what we call Green Revolution, that informing the farmers that what kind of agriculture they should do, as opposed to the traditional methods of agriculture. The new methods and new techniques and new seeds and new manures or fertilizers were suggested. New techniques were suggested. Demonstrations were shown, and in the process, in states like Punjab and many other parts of India, the production increased and we become a food grain surplus country, and that's called Green Revolution. Similarly, health and family welfare is another major area where communication has been used. Our planners, our leaders, our forefathers, they realized that India's population is increasing and we have to contain. India is the first country in the world which has a policy on health and family welfare, that is limiting the population. A lot of progress has been made in this also, that how to provide health services, how to provide services which can restrict the unnecessary or unwanted child. So that's another major area where Government of India and state governments have used communication for development. Third, which these days you might be seeing a lot of campaigns, mass awareness campaigns, that is HIV, a new dreaded situations, health situation, where immunity of individual is reduced or gone, and you have the AIDS, which is this. So awareness about it, how to prevent it, how to protect yourself and your family and others from this infection. Other area which is a very successful area is eradication of polio. Lifetime you might have seen earlier that lots of people or many people in your village or town were polio affected. They were not able to walk properly. Now, continuous campaign for the last couple of years, more than a decade, giving 2 drops. You must have come across 2 drops. There are Polio Ravivar, that's a campaign. People keep on talking about it, and there are certain Sundays when on mass scales, children till the age of 5 are given 2 drops of polio. Now, to protect them against polio infection. There are various poverty alleviation programs, Even the adult education in what's now called Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan, that's another area where a lot of communication inputs have been provided to universalize education. Various other mass awareness campaigns. Recently, on 31st May, there is a anti-tobacco day. So you might be hearing a lot of advertisements relating to tobacco, whether it's smoking or chewing, and what are the harmful effects of it, including the cancer. So and so forth. There are various examples when we are deciding to move in a particular direction, that is development, and use communication in support of development. That's the real purpose of development communication. Now, this is a word of caution that it's not that easy, that you have communication, you have development plan, you will inform people and people will gladly accept it. If you go back, even in family planning, health and family welfare, awareness level is very high, means maybe almost 90% of married couples are aware today across the country that there is something called family planning, there is something called desire, that's family planning. So awareness is there, knowledge is there. There might be even a fairly widespread positive attitudes. People will talk about it, that attitude in the sense there should be a need for a small family. Now, but when it comes to practice, what we call KAP gap, knowledge, attitude and practice gap, practice it's not that high, particularly in certain states it's not that high. So this shows the difficulties that comes in use of communication for development and issues, sensitive issues like family planning. The same thing too about other development programs. In the region why it doesn't work or what are the difficulties come, I put into the next slide, that change is not easy. Nobody wants to change, that's the fact of life. अगर आप जहाँ बैठे हैं अगले दिन अगर क्लास में हैं तो उसी चेयर पे आके बैठेंगे normally, because any slight change causes discomfort. However small might be, we get used to that comfort level so soon that we do not change. So change is not easy, and development communication means change in the desired direction, means in suggested direction. Now, so any communication suggesting change is resisted. If you say do this, the people normally resist because they are used to doing certain things certain way. Either they will not receive that message, जिसे कहते हैं ना देखा अनदेखा कर देते, सुन रहे हैं लेकिन सुनते नहीं, देख रहे हैं देख नहीं रहे हैं, पढ़ रहे हैं फिर भी नहीं पढ़ रहे हैं, तो इग्नोर करते हैं. Research shows the people read, listen and see only those things or only those messages with which they agree to begin with. जिससे आप एग्री करते हैं वही बातें आप पढ़ना चाहते हैं, वही देखना चाहते हैं. जो सजेस्ट करेगा इससे बदलो तो वो उसको रजिस्ट करते हैं, उसको पढ़ते ही नहीं है, पढ़ भी नहीं लेंगे, देख भी लेंगे तो उसका मतलब अपने ढंग से निकालेंगे, परसेप्शन अपने ढंग से करेंगे और चेंज को रजिस्ट करते हैं. सो वन हैज़ टू हैव ए स्ट्रैटेजी टू ओवरकम रेजिस्टेंस. This is a struggle, this is a very challenge before planners, all development experts, academics and students like you, that all of us who are used to doing things in a certain way, continue to do the things because that's what we have been told right from beginning on family, small family, to peer group, to class, to society. Any change is resisted or we do not like it or causes discomfort. So for that you have to have a real strategy, and that's why in addition to development communication I prefer the use of a strategy for change, that is strategically use communication for the purpose of development. That what people know, for that you have to have a really long kind of or good understanding of the people whom you want to change. You have to good understanding of what are the development issues. It sounds simple to begin with. अब उनके भलाई के लिए हम बात कर रहे हैं, उनके अच्छाई के लिए बात कर रहे हैं, why they don't accept, but it's not that easy. Any change is resisted. So try to understand their social context, cultural context. Now simple thing like family planning, everybody talks about small family is good. But do you know that small, the word small, is interpreted differently. For you or for anybody, means urban middle class or upper middle class, small might mean 1 or 2. But for a rural, by and large, small means minimum 3 or 4, and that makes a difference. Both are using the same attitude. Both are saying that, well, small family is a good family or happy family. We have become familiar with these slogans, and that's why we accept it as a kind of desirable social position. And we do say, well, small family is a happy family. We want small family. But what's the concept of small? छोटा परिवार है क्या? दोनों का नज़रिया अलग अलग है. अगर ये नुआंसेस देखेंगे और उस तरह से कम्युनिकेशन को यूज करेंगे, हाउ टू इन्फॉर्म देम सो दैट द resistance is broken and they see it, they become participant in that process of development, and they willingly, which said it in the first 5-year plan, make people willing partners. So the whole development communication effort should be that people become willing partners in communication and development. I think I will stop at this, and maybe there are some questions or answers. I will be happy to answer those.
Okay, fine. So you have talked about what are the subject matter of development communication and how the communication leads change to the development, and as you also change is not easy. But how this field, development communication, is likely to expand in coming times, and why interest? So you know a little bit about why the interest is generated so far in this field, and how you see in the coming days this thing will unfold.
Well, it's a very valid question, and I think interesting question. Why so much emphasis now shifting to development communication? Now, first thing is we are living in the age of communication. You know, the communication revolution or communication technology revolution is there through liberalization, through globalization, through technology. Basically, it's a change. Now, you might be seeing and wondering, even a laborer in the street has a mobile phone. Even in remote villages, there is a phone. So, information is spreading very fast. Earlier, phones were to be waited for years to get a phone connection. Now, anyone can, or rather, the companies are after you to have a phone. Mobile phone is there. Same is true about other forms of communication. Television has reached villages or remote area, urban area. So the poor or the who were earlier information, I would say, starved or knowledge starved. They were not having knowledge. Now they are seeing things that people are having good life. Means when they see television, they see lots of advertisements also. A lot of kind of very, very attractive ads. Their young children on the television see happy with drinking Coke or eating Cadbury's or other chocolates. Now their children also want, their parents are also want. So the people are now looking for those very level of living lifestyles which is portrayed through television, through films, through communication. So desires what we call revolution of rising expectations. People are expecting quite a bit. Now the planners, the government or politicians all realize this. People are expecting more and more, and for that purpose they are planning development things. So various inputs are going on to make people move forward so that they are able to lead the life of people which they are seeing on television. So it's a revolution in rising expectation, and the government's efforts or the societal efforts, not only government, lots of private sector and NGOs are working towards development. So lots of plans are going on. You see NREGA, it's such a large scale economic social development is taking place. Another big program which India is launching on very soon is urban. Food security. Food security is there, health and family welfare there. Jawaharlal Nehru urban development is there, and even more drastic would be India, slum-free India.
Right.
You might have heard of it or you may not have heard it. It's coming very soon, a major program India will launch, that India there won't be any slum. So expectations are being raised and the steps are being taken to fulfill those expectations, and for that communication is going on. So that's why the emphasis is shifting from pure information to development, which is a change in the desired direction. That's the way I describe.
That's fine. Here the question arises: change and development have different connotations. Change can be positive, negative, etc. Development is something which is happening in desired direction in a progressive way.
Yeah.
So the development communications field, the development communications, the subject matter should be the only development or the change also.
No, I think one has to see things in perspective. एक परिप्रेक्ष्य में देखने की जरूरत है. चेंज तो बहुत हो रहे हैं. सब चेंज जो हैं वो अच्छी के लिए नहीं है. कुछ
that's different. They have different meaning.
So वो भी चेंज होंगे क्योंकि आप हर चीज़ को रोका नहीं. फ्रीडम ऑफ एक्सप्रेशन है. जो कई एक चीज़ें जो हम सोचते हैं नहीं होनी चाहिए होती हैं, फिर भी होंगी क्योंकि टेक्नोलॉजी मेक्स इट पॉसिबल. कंट्रोल अब संभव है ही नहीं मीडिया का, ऑलमोस्ट इम्पॉसिबल, क्योंकि आप रोकेंगे कहीं ना कहीं और से उनको इन्फॉर्मेशन मिल जाती है और वो होता रहेगा. लेकिन efforts should be that desired direction, make it more attractive, make them aware, yes, it is there, it's your efforts, you are party to it, and you will benefit for it. If that's why the emphasis in all development communication is more of a participation, participatory, planning from below, that those kind of efforts. So if the nation has to move forward, the society has moved forward, which India is. We talk about GDP growth, but people are happy that we are having a good GDP growth despite the global decline. But the benefit of growth, economic growth, is not going down to the level it should have gone. That's why all development effort, at least government level and public sector level, also social responsibility of corporate communication, efforts are being made.
That is true. But the point here is the pleasure of GDP growth and the pain of GDP growth. There are two groups. One who says that development communication is that which talks about the pain of the GDP. The people who are suffering, people who have are reeling under this pressure, economic growth, you say distribution sources, we can say.
Social equality.
Social equality, inequality, etc. So the in development communication, ambit will come both or the only one.
No, it's an emphasis, the perspective which says so far the change is concerned, GDP change that has taken its momentum and is going on. For that also policy needs to be such that it carries on, because if there is no GDP growth, then there's not much to distribute, or there's not much for social justice. But when you grow and you have a GDP, you have money. Some people are living very lavish life, fine, but others are also demanding. They are also expecting reasonable way of living, and so that's why I said it's a revolution of rising expectation. Now even the laborer who goes and watches a movie, he has a television, he has mobile, and while working he continues to listening to film songs or songs of his own. So lots of things are happening which are very positive. I would say those who are dealing with development communication will have a perspective on change in the desired direction. That's what is needed. Okay. That's where the focus is on.
Fine. So having talked about the ambit of development communication, now we come about the presentation of development communication. We have witnessed in the past about the political communication. In the beginning, you say after independence, the political communication meant what is being taken at policy level, what is being spoken by the political leaders. Now they have come to a position to only talking about the conflict between two leaders, parties, and confrontation between government and oppositions. So the same thing now we come to development communication. There are conflict in two scientists, agriculture scientists, environmental scientists, two way of reaching to a production level. The production, how much production we needed and how much production is to be for the profit, how the production is just for the needs. So presentation, how the status of this presentation will come into coming decades.
Well, this is natural because it's a
Or
society.
as a development journalist should have caution while reporting these things?
No, no, no. It's one has to realize we are living in a very complex world. Earlier, the world was very simple, societal. Now the world has become very complex. So has become India. So there are various dimensions of anything, and I said it right in the beginning about communication also. And I would say the same thing about development. Both are very complex,
Yes.
apparently simple, but both processes, the development process and communication process, are both very complex. So people will naturally bound to have different perspectives. But it's a good debate. Debate is a good thing. If there are different perspectives, fine. And that's what freedom allows, and our country allows for it, that there are opinions to discuss freely and frankly. But this point, earlier politicians were talking about development, and now they are not talking only conflicts. People are very
Not about the politician, but about the journalist.
the journalist earlier, that's something. Even journalism was much simpler earlier times. You just report a speech of a minister. Just report, state reporting.
They were porter, not a reporter.
Now, as somebody rightly said, news has become weapons,
Right.
to influence people. So, the way the stakes are high. Those who are working in development communication, they will bring out that perspective. And as I said, it is a complex. If you are developing and if you are harming the environment, the person concerned with the environment will voice their views, air their views. Okay, it's not good. So it's good that both the views are coming. State development, people have realized, is not enough. You have to take it very complex. So remember, development is a complex. Communication is complex. The whole society is getting more and more complex. So the need for understanding of communication and development in a wider perspective by the students of journalism and mass communication will be very helpful, and I think they should pay good focus or attention to these issues. And they are very exciting because that they are in your day-to-day life. You see it all around, wherever you are, whether it's in urban area or rural area, lots of development activities are going on. You have to just be a watchful observer that how communication works in those situations, and they can make a valuable contribution.
A very valid point you have raised, that news is not just information but also to influence the things. So the point arises here, journalist with a purpose to influencing the things. Like that is more, you say, that was not so pioneer, so influencing in the political section. That will be more in the case of development journalism, like seed policy, BT cotton, etc. Journalists write, this will be the good. And the farmers, the practitioners just take as a face value. And in course of time, that proves to be wrong. So here the danger is more. In that case, what a journalist should do, whether they should go for the influencing, go for the another approach, the basic principle or basic dictum of journalism, be neutral, because they will not be expected of expert of the things. They have to take the point from different sources.
Well, this is a never-ending debate whether the journalist should be a neutral totally. I would say no human being is totally neutral.
Yeah, that is true.
Some kind of preferences, but don't let it be blatantly influence your reporting. But taking a different perspective is a positive thing. But taking your own view, means if you have settled to score and use your power of pen or camera to malign somebody with a design or to destroy somebody with a design is a bad. But if you are convinced that this is genetically modified cotton is not good, you have to collect a lot of information. It's not that easy. The society has become more complex. There are global issues, the global forces operating, they're pushing their products, which is good some way, but it's bad in some way. Because it may not be that good, but they produce a product, they have a product and they're pushing it. Now, what are the long-term consequences of any scientific invention, like genetically modified cotton, or tomato or brinjal for that matter? Journalists now demand is much more. because the world is becoming complex, issues are becoming complex, sources of information are so many and so conflicting. So the role of journalists in that sense also becomes very demanding and challenging. But development communication, I would still say, it's how to steer through and inform the people that affects their life. Now, newspapers and television do say, use that you can use. Now, this is the kind of perspective a media person or journalist should provide to the common person. And these are something happening. If you take advantage of it and be a part of it, you're likely to move in that direction. And that's what we call it development.
So, keeping this in view, development communication and development journalism require a kind of a specialist sort of things. So, do you suggest a specialization before going in this development journalism? One require a special degree or a special certificate sort of things?
Oh. I would say
because in general journalist,
yeah.
what they do, they report, join as a cub reporter, and with the practice they learn the art of reporting. But here,
yeah, as we grow, you see, this kind of development journalism or development media persons, you have to a much wider perspective of what I call it forces that operate in our society.
right.
Economic forces, international forces, cultural forces, all kinds of religious forces. They are operating and they are influencing our mind, our thinking. And in that context, certainly yes, a media person who wants to work in communication development area has to read much wider, understand much more complexities of the modern times, and then report. As opposed to a cab reporter or cub reporter, like accident has taken place, so many are murder or so many are killed. That's a simple job kind of.
Yeah.
But to understand the how the genetically modified cotton works, what are its consequences, what has been experienced over the other countries, what are the consequences, how it affects the farmers here, all this requires much more complex, much more, I would say, challenging task for a journalist. He has to be reading a lot more
So,
and writing more, keeping the people in mind.
so keeping this view, as a, you are not only an expert media traveler, we can also say, and you have established a number of institutions. So, institution prepared for giving training to them.
Yes.
Equipped with that sort of expertise and.
Well, most media courses do have a small portion of development communication, but I would say they should be doing more. Recently, IGNU has introduced a PhD program, and in that I insisted there should be one section as a part of the course curricula development communication. At least at PhD level, they should understand
Right.
how Indian society is changing. And if a journalist or media person or a PhD student don't understand, then it's not a good situation.
Right.
So a proper, and once PhD programs comes in the development communication, it will spread further. But in coming years and coming times, I would say there will be need and demand for more and more people working in this area. I would say development journalism is a one new strain or new area of potential jobs. Mostly those for the foreign agencies which are working in India, the government which is working in development communication, NGOs working in the development communication. Lots of things are happening, a lot of jobs are there, where communication expertise are required, communication strategies are required, communication material is required, how to prepare to suit or help the development communication. That's how I would say from pure practical point of view, this is a new growing area for jobs for the students.
Now we come maybe a bit drift from this development and Naxalism. It is said that the Naxalism is a cause of underdevelopment. So journalists who covers Naxalism, they will fall in the category of conflict reporting, the cover in the development issues that will fall in the category of development journalists. So, what? How do you see? They both see in a different angle.
They're reporting the same reality. Means one focusing on day-to-day kind of mundane reporting, like so many people have killed.
Yeah.
That's a kind of reporting of a conflict.
Yeah.
But there are people, you gave the example, P. Sainath, and there are others who study it more thoroughly and try to understand the causes, why they are in a state where they are, and why they are. This is to my mind, is a good example of rising expectations. Those tribal, those remote people also expecting a reasonable standards of life, and they are not getting it. And if they are not getting it, some other interest groups are exploiting, I would say, quote unquote, exploiting, or at least suggesting them take arms, which to my mind is not proper, but yeah, there are people who are taking on arms.
That is true, but they are either column writer, article writer, insight writer, backgrounder, news analysis, etc. But that does not come in the form of reporting. And reporting has its own importance. The bearing of a report is, I think, much more in the mind of general readers, not a serious reader. We are talking because the only serious reader go for the articles or the columns and read it thoroughly. But the general readers, or the listeners or viewers on the television, they just listen the headlines or the reports. That's in one line, two lines. So here, the task is here. A conflict reporter will talk about the number of people killed and how this happened and all that. Development journalism will start talking one by one and etc. So
well, these kind of classifications do help in an understanding, but I would say there are borderline cases, and people take experiential learning. You see, people read the newspaper, what you call hot spot news, but they also try to understand. It's not that common man is not interested in how and why this. It's up to the journalist how interestingly he writes it. For instance, recently, the front page, Economic Times, you'll say, why, where on Economic Times is purely economic thing. They're given the title Experiential Learning. Helps in growth. Means you are going, seeing certain things, it does a lot of good for economics also. Same thing here, the journalists apply. If the experience learning means if they stay there, stay longer and do a human angle story, which some journalists do. So along with the hot news or kind of conflict news, they also bring out the human angle of it as a part of their main story. Because people may not read a separate specialized articles, but the common reader do read the news. And if you weave together, that's the new trend in journalism reporting, if you weave together the conflict and then explain the conflict in terms of the life there, or human interest angle, or human angle, then things become, for instance, the Faridabad story.
Yeah, we'll have more impact.
It's not just 10 people died, but it did bring out a couple of stories, at least I read them, all three. So as a part of the reporting, we bring in the human angle, people do read, and that's what the training is now being emphasized, that what we call streamline the causes, understanding, so that while they're reading this factual part of it, they also understand it. And that's what really is development communication, that as a part of your main story, you built up the issues which concern development, which are behind development or cause development or put obstacles in development. So the people understand it, and accordingly they will take the corrective measures.
Having talked about the challenges, prospects, status, now we come to the business angle. It is said, or that it is generally believed, that the owner of the newspaper or the channel, they go for the profit. If this emerges, development journalism, as the general masses, it interests more to the general masses, and their interest is the profit. How in this fight the newspaper industry or media industry will move from here?
Well, this conflict is highlighted commercial perspective or commercialization of media. Well, commercial angle is necessary. No media can survive without commercial viability. That has to be ensured. But if you notice of late, in the last 5 to 10 years, along with commercial, the effort is to cover the whole range. It's not a this or that. It's a commercial angle also. Means any good newspaper or any good channels, if he has to be good really, he has to what we call cafeteria approach. You'll give something for everybody.
Everyone.
And that's why they are surviving. And that's why the bigger media or conglomerate of media are flourishing, and smaller becomes difficult or less viable. Now it might be a bad trend, but that's what it is. That bigger media or conglomerate who has resources can give the whole range and do a good commercial sense as well as social sense.
This is one aspect. The other aspect of ownership, which recently had come into some newspaper, that the change of ownership, the nature of change of previously it was either trust, either some industrial houses, some sort of these 3 or 4 models of the ownership. Now a new one has come, NGO sort. The NGO and the trust are pouring money into the channels and newspaper houses, and they are controlling the things. So in that case, suppose NGO or trust of New Earth, NGO or trust of Europe, they are supporting, they are influencing the channels, and they ask to propagate the some like burger and pizza. So naturally, accordingly, kids are growing up eating kurkure or etc. So how this will?
I don't think this kurkure and pizza and hamburger are by NGOs or trusts. They are by commercial companies.
Commercial companies.
Yeah.
But
and therefore selling a commercial product.
Going deep into the intricacies of all these, one come to understanding that this is being guided by somewhere.
Could be, but that's something. The world is becoming more complex. Who is doing what, with what intention, with what background, you never know. You can link it with the terrorism also. Somebody is giving money to a religious organization.
Yeah.
But what are the sources, how it goes, it's not it's a very desirable thing. That's something. It is becoming more and more complex and more challenging for the media persons to understand it. That's why I keep emphasizing it's good to understand the forces which operate in a society. If you want to be a good development communication expert, you have to have a very wide kind of understanding or perspective of the forces which operates, guides, run the institutions, run the society, both national and international level. Then only you can be. So it's earlier world was very simple.
Very simple. So now we have to understand the social changes, new hero, new demons, and only then we can come to a certain conclusion.
If you go deeper into this issue of corruptions and NGOs or civil societies, again the layers and layers, that's why the job of a journalist has become very complex.
Okay. So, well friends, the today discussion must have been enlightening to all of you, exciting, and the number of new things which have come while discussion and while the discourse was being given by Professor J.S. Jadhav. And as he said that society is changing, new heroes, new demons, new things, new every
more
day
complex.
More complex are becoming. So until we have understanding of all this, we can't give you a fair report, fair sort of the image, fair sort of the story which is coming up. So while reporting, while doing the job of journalism, one must understand the society and must try to know, try to understand, try to find out the issues, find out what is happening behind all this. After that only one should file a story. This will help us not only to the journalist but also to the general public, and this will be the fair, good and betterment for the country. So with this word, we would like to conclude the lecture, and I would like to thank all of you for watching the lecture, and on your behalf, I thank Professor J.S. Jadhav for enlightening us with the new topic, development journalism and communication. Thank you very much.